All right, so we are live. Thank you, Ryan Spak, for joining me. For those who don't know me, I am Hone Ty, the real estate guy, helping you escape your 9 to 5. But it looks like we've all escaped our 9 to 5 already. But Ryan Spak, our guest of the day, and I want you to introduce yourself real quick for those who don't know you.
Sure. So it's glad to be here. Thank you, Hone, for bringing me on board. My name is Ryan Spak. I am the founder and president of Spak Group. We are a Philadelphia-based equity real estate developer, and our company is under the same stress and conditions that all of you are under. And so glad to be here and to chat a little bit about what we're doing and how we're making our building safe, and hopefully how we're making this situation more attainable to our tenants.
Gotcha. All right. So before all of this happened, what were your visions? What were your goals? What were you doing? What was your business specializing in? If you could give me a brief description on all of that.
Yeah, sure. So our company is a vertically integrated development company. So we have development, finance, construction, and property management all tied into one company. We have 8 full-time employees and 2 partners. And the company's mission is to figure out how to equitably build developments in communities within our city. And so a good example of that is a project we just finished in December, a project that refinanced and closed its loan last Friday under all of the COVID-19 nonsense.
We got it through.
We got it through. That was a very interesting process. That building was built specifically for tenants with a housing need. So a good example for that would be housing vouchers, or someone who has aged out of foster care, or somebody who was previously homeless who was currently in a shelter. That building was utilized. It was an old warehouse that was zoned single family. We rezoned it and redeveloped it for the purposes of doing well and doing good. How can we serve our neighbors and at the same time make enough money to operate and satisfy both our investors' needs and those of the banks? And so every one of our projects in our pipeline meets those guidelines in some way, shape, or form.
So I've heard you say doing well by doing good a few times. And when I first heard that little quote, it was just like, wow, it's really neat. Could you go into more of that? I think people really need to hear this doing well by doing good thing. Because I think a lot of people focus on themselves and just like, I'm just going to do good.
Yeah.
Or I'm just going to do well. I'm going to do well for myself. But then with your quote, it's thinking about others as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take credit for the concept. The reality is that B corporations do this all the time. The reality of our world is that you're either a for-profit snake or you're a nonprofit hero. Well, what would happen if the two mindsets combined? And real estate development is a very, very difficult. It's a very, very difficult landscape. Right? You go in front of a community, and right out of the gate, in most scenarios, the developer is the enemy. Somebody from outside the community who is trying to change that community and not interacting with that community and what that community desires or needs, etc. Because I was blessed to live in the community in which I developed, that started to refocus my concept and my company's mission about how are we as a small business, not as a real estate developer, but as a small business, how are we actually going to interact well with our community? How are we going to be a good citizen? And what it came down to was we weren't just going to build for those that were coming to the neighborhood. We had to also build for those that were here. And that conversation led to us looking at developments in a way that that was a very, very long and difficult road. How do you make profit and give back within that development itself? So not just make a bunch of money and then make a donation. The building in and of itself gives something back. And that became a very, very long road. It took us about 4 years to get to the first project. The second project is coming out of the ground now. And well, it was up until the governor's shutdown order. And the next 2 projects are in the pipeline. They're being designed as we speak. So
are you at all concerned with your future projects? So that I think is a concern with a lot of different investors, developers. It's like unemployment is going to be super high and incomes are zero for a lot of people. So what do you think you're going to do about these projects that are scheduled with no certainty on the horizon?
So the projects that are under construction right now are financed already. So those construction loans, we have gone into forbearance conversations about the interest payments on those construction loans for the time being. But those projects are one in particular, not only is the construction loan in place, but the permanent financing is in place. And so I'm not as concerned about that particular project. It's going to be built. The next project was in the design phase, and we actually had an investor put a pause button on some of their equity money coming to the table. They are falling into a defensive position where they are going to hold on to their cash because you don't know what's around the corner. That is fair. I don't blame them for taking that position. To that end, this has a window, right? We've seen this. We've seen COVID-19 in China. We've seen COVID-19 in Italy. We kind of know what the window looks like. There is an end. It is not a pleasant end. It is not a short-term fix. And obviously, we all have to survive between now and most likely June or July. But the reality of the situation is that once it starts to break, we will see most people go back to work. We'll see productivity come back. And hopefully we can all survive that 3 or 4 months that it's going to take for that to happen.
Gotcha. So let's talk about that. So there are a lot of people who are struggling. I was just talking to a contractor now. He said all of his income has stopped, like nothing. Yeah. And because he was self-employed, he didn't have necessarily unemployment to fall back on and things like that. So he's stuck. Like, what do you recommend for people?
The beauty of being self-employed, right?
Yeah.
You can't file for unemployment, right?
Right.
So I mean, the first thing that I would recommend is there are a multitude of potential loans and grants that you can file for. If you were a corporation, that means you're an LLC. It means you're a contractor. I mean, for my company, it's not just one company, right? Spak Group exists as an entity. It also exists as an umbrella, right? So we've got a construction company. We've got an S Corp that's our management company. We have other LLCs that operate. All of them are filing disaster loans. Look, today we filed this one. If most likely 2 more will get filed by the end of today. And I've already filed 3. So we are going to seek out whatever assistance is available. I don't know if we're going to get that, and we're not banking on it. But if we can, like we filed for a loan, it's a forgivable loan. And the terms of the loan, if I remember correctly, are something to the effect of if you bring your staff back on payroll, even if they're not working, the loan is forgiven if you keep that staff for a certain amount of time. We're willing to commit to that. Totally willing to commit to that. I would love to bring my staff back because right now only 25% of my staff is working.
Wow.
Yeah. I would love to be able to bring my staff back. So
right. It's interesting as a business owner, we have to worry about other people's salaries, whereas when you're just an employee, you're worried about your salary. Like, am I going to get paid? But we as business owners have to worry: are we getting paid? But also, can we pay everybody else? And it's this interesting juggling act, and I understand why people don't necessarily want to be in business for themselves because of things like that.
Oh yeah. Oh, listen. On Friday, the day after the governor's shutdown order, we poured the last section of a foundation. That's great. Fantastic. We made the site safe. Did exactly what the governor wanted us to do. Everything's, site's beautiful. It's fantastic. It's great. I've got a subcontractor who finished his part of the job, right? I want to pull a drawdown on the construction loan. I called the bank and said, I want to pull down a draw, right? I know you can wire me the money. I can email you the draw. I know you're working from home. The question is, how do I get it inspected? How do we inspect it? Well, so the bank hadn't at that moment, 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, thought of the mechanism to ensure that they would be satisfied with the work. And the whole purpose of that was so that I could do two things. One, pull my construction management fee for the month so I could pay my company. And two, that I could turn around and pay my subcontractor.
Right.
So we worked out how to satisfy the bank so that we can get some folks paid, because the reality is we're all in this together. And if I can push that, instead of that contractor waiting 30 days for his money, I can get it to him in 2 weeks when we're all shut down. That's
Have they opened up
to do right now.
Have they opened up to the idea of doing like virtual checks where you either take pictures or videos of what the work you did and they cut you a check, right?
That's exactly what we did. We took video of it. We took photos of it. We got the special engineer who was on site that day to speed up his field inspection report. And all of that helped speed up the process of getting the bank on board that the work was done satisfactorily. And so they were willing to cut us a draw. Hasn't been processed yet, but
Right. It's successful once the money's in the checking account.
Everything. Listen, it took me a long time to get to the closings I got to on Friday. Everything has taken a whole lot longer than we wanted it to. So, yeah.
Right. In terms of like running your own business right now, right? You have your construction company, you have your real estate company, you have your property management company, you have all these things going on. Right. What I've noticed from talking to different people is that this event has opened up their eyes to different vulnerabilities within their businesses. Have you seen anything to that nature in your business? Is there something that you are like, oh, I'm going to be buttoning this up, that up, or like, things like that? Things that we like probably should have always done. We just didn't get around to it, or whatever.
Yeah. So a good example of that is we never took online payments ever. Like, don't ask me why. We just never got around to doing it. It just never.
I was gonna ask you why.
It never happened. I don't know why. It's silly. We never did it. There was a link on our website for the longest time. We never set it up. 2 weeks ago, we put that in motion, and within a week, it was operational. I think it went live on Friday of last week.
Right. And so, all right. So, welcome to the 21st century.
Welcome to the 21st century. Exactly. Yeah.
Sure. Right.
I mean, I will tell you a couple of things. I have watched some of my friends and colleagues whose portfolios looked really, really sweet because they were heavy on the commercial side of things. I always was a little envious of that type of portfolio. I'm glad I'm not on the commercial side of things right now. That would be much more difficult to deal with than what we're dealing with. I will tell you that I'm very proud of our diversified portfolio. And I'm really, really glad to be in the marketplace that I'm in terms of rents. We're never the top of the market. Because our mission is what it is, we're usually looking at how do we do subsidized housing or moderate income housing, and that has put us in it's a much safer space than what I anticipated from a business stability standpoint, even under all this nonsense.
Right. So the subsidized rent is a beautiful thing right now. It's like anybody who's in the subsidized space, it's like, wow, you guys are geniuses.
Only 15 or 20% of our rent is in that space.
Okay.
We're only
For
talking
those,
about a small portion of our portfolio.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
saw
yeah. But you have to,
80.
you think about it. You think about it. We've got developers in Cedar Park in West Philly who are putting up 2-bedroom apartments and trying to get $1,900 to $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
I welcome them, but I will never go to. I will never get into a marketing war with them. Our price point hits 1650 and then they stop. So
Right.
I'm never going to get into that fight. So we're not at the top of the market, and so for that reason, and because our tenant base is diversified, I'm April 1st has a big pit in all of our stomachs, but at the same time, we're not as worried, I think, as some others, which is
Right.
a good place to be in at the moment.
Right. It's interesting. I had a conversation with somebody about the millionaires and those who are really rich or were really rich, and I was like, how are they doing? What do you think's going on in their heads? And he said, oh, they're the ones who are really worried right now because if you're a multimillionaire, there's a good chance that you got there by owning a lot of assets, having a lot of businesses and buildings and tenants and employees and all of that. And then don't forget, you bought yourself a nice luxury car. You guys have a nice big house.
Yeah.
And your real estate or your stock market portfolio just took a dive.
Yeah.
So all of it all at once. So it seems that this is affecting everybody from those who are minimum wage all the way up to those who have millions and millions of dollars.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, our first email to our tenants went out 3 weeks ago about this. So before it was ever considered a crisis, and our tenants have received, I think, 3 or 4 correspondence from us that had nothing to do with rent. It had to do with what we were doing to keep our common areas clean. It had to do with what available assets they could obtain in terms of food supply or getting testing. I had somebody in my office call each hospital system to find out what someone would have to do in order to get tested. And we put that in an email to our tenants. Our attitude about dealing with this situation is we're all going to hurt. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. We're going to have a tenant that can't make their rent. We're going to have somebody in one of our buildings who knows someone who gets sick. If we do not stand with each other, then we're all screwed. Plain. And so we've told our tenants pretty much from day one, you have an issue, call us. We will figure out a way to work it out with you. And we mean that. We mean that. We want the ones who can afford to pay the rent, pay the rent. Pay the rent, please, for a multitude of reasons. And the ones that can't, call us. We'll figure out how to make it work. And so far, we're good. We have.
Right. So, and how have your tenants responded to that so far? Like, what have the responses been?
Exactly what we had hoped. Some were incredibly grateful. Some were a little cautious about what exactly it meant for us to help them. And as the responses started to come in, we started to make our policies more general. So like we've waived all late fees for the month of April, period. End of story for everyone. If you signed up for the online system and you paid your rent between April 1st and April 15th, you got $50 off your May's rent, period. End of story. And so we started to assist folks. We had one person who was furloughed, and we basically told them, listen, show us the letter from your employer, show us that you filed for unemployment, and when your unemployment benefits come in, call us back. We'll figure out a percentage, and then we'll figure out how to break up the rest of it until you've caught up. No late fees. And so what will eventually happen with that particular person is their last month's rent's already been paid. It's escrowed. It's sitting in our operating account. So we're going to take whatever they can afford out of their last month's rent. And then when their last month rolls around, which is in 7 months, according to that particular lease, they'll turn around and owe the difference. If this stretches out further, then we'll reevaluate. And at the same time that we're doing all this, the same time we want the tenants to come talk to us, we're talking to our banks.
Right. And what are you saying to your banks?
We don't know what the future looks like. What are you thinking? And they're saying, we don't know what the future looks like either. Some of them have plans and some of them don't have any concept whatsoever. It's
right.
Everybody's on different pages. It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
Very time consuming. Yeah.
The things that I've been hearing from my lenders and other lenders, some lenders are allowing for a deferment. Some are allowing for forbearance. Yep. Some are allowing for interest only, so they're modifying the payments. Yep. Some are when the loan is being deferred, it gets to be added to the back, or the end stays the same, your monthly payment increases. So they're doing things like that. Yep. So all things help.
Yep. Now, every single solitary loan that we have is being negotiated differently.
Right. Every single one. So as an investor, I'm guessing it's in our best interest to know what options exist. Just like I just mentioned, just knowing that all of those different things exist, so that you can negotiate with the bank.
Well, I mean, I'll be frank with you, and this is being recorded, so I'm on the record by saying this. If our tenants are going to pay our rent, then we're paying our mortgage payment.
Right.
I don't want to have to go through the process of modifying my loan. I don't want to have to do anything. There's no benefit in pocketing my tenant's rent for 3 months and deferring 3 months worth of interest. But there's zero benefit in that. No one's going to get filthy rich off of doing that. And if you think you are, then that's just a foolish move. If we end up getting assistance from our banks, we want to be able to give that flexibility to the tenants who need it. I mean, the idea behind this, the next 3-4 months of our lives, is how to stay alive, right? Both physically and healthy individually, together as a humanity, and in business. How do you stay alive, right? That's the whole point here. So that is our goal. And right now, a lot of that is plug and play. File an application with PIDC, find out what they're willing to provide to our construction company. File another application with PIDC, find out what they're willing to give to the management company. All of these things stacked on top of each other, hopefully will eventually allow for us to not even feel this pain, other than the time allotted.
Right.
We'll see.
Right. So those who are at home right now, who maybe had a job and now don't have a job, what kind of advice would you give them? I want to look more on the hopeful. There's all that doom and gloom, and we know what's going on. People can't leave their house. People can't go to work. People can't do all those things. So now, while they're home, let's just talk about what they could do while they're home, right? What are some great things that you would advise that people do?
Get ready to buy something.
Okay. So let's talk about that. How should they get ready, and what should they be looking for, and how should they be looking for it? And let's just go into details. I think people like details.
Sure. So in 2000, when the internet bubble burst and the stock market lost 30 to 40% of its value, the economy went into a recession, right? In September of 2001, we know what happened. Right? Something that shocked the world, that turned the world on its head, that no one saw coming, right? Except we were in the middle of a recession at the same time that something literally put a pause on our world for a week and then changed the dynamics of our government, how it spent its money, what wars we were going to go into. Everything changed at that moment. This is not that, but it's kind of similar, right? We knew, if you have been paying attention, that at some point we were due for a recession. A correction in the market was going to happen. Most likely it would have happened when the oil price war started. Except we had an oil price war at the same time that, COVID-19 decided to rear its ugly head, right? So maybe this recession is worse than the 2000 mid-cycle slowdown, but at the end of the day, This to me feels very similar. We don't hear about banks going bankrupt. There isn't mass foreclosures yet. Now, if this goes on for months and months and months, that might be a whole different animal. But right now, this feels like a mid-cycle slowdown that does not hit real estate. That's how this feels. If that is the case, then money will remain relatively cheap in order to keep the economy moving. That is a very good sign for your ability to buy real estate and put financing in place that is of value. So we see this as a potential opportunity to maybe put some projects in the pipeline that wasn't initially on our radar. Now, I don't know if that is right now or that's 5 months from now, but my guess is it's somewhere in line with that concept.
What do you think would open up now that financing is cheaper and things might get a little rocky? So what kind of deals do you think will open up that weren't here before?
I think if you had somebody on the fence of selling who just took a hit in the stock market, I think it is very possible for them to want to sell. I think it is because they're going to want to get their cash out. I think that those are deals that would happen that would not have happened before. I think that there are other scenarios where there could potentially be partnerships with folks who don't necessarily want to give up the real estate, but are looking for a cash position that they necessarily didn't have. And you, being an investor, might have the ability to connect that building with financing and improve upon that property and make it more than what it is today. I think that there will be opportunities because of this slowdown that didn't exist 6 months ago when everybody kept watching the world just increase in value.
Right. So with sellers looking for a capital event of some sort without selling, now they'll be open to things like that, or maybe they'll sell.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll sell. They're not thinking so optimistic.
Correct. And the other thing about it is, what do banks do with their money? Right. Money is like energy, right? It has to go somewhere, right? So it might lose value, and it might buy less or buy more, but at some point, the banks have it. They can't make money holding on to it. So at some point, they're going to want to lend it out. And if the stock market is in a very precarious position, if there are other asset classes that don't make much financial sense, then the money will be pushed into real estate as it has in the past. And if that happens and there is available cash like we've seen, then there will be a pop in the real estate market.
So this is actually, it could potentially cause the real estate market to increase even more than it already has.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's happened before, right? So prior to the internet bubble in 2000, we had an increase in real estate values. Now, Philadelphia didn't see it as much as the rest of the country, but we had a real estate trend that went upwards. Then we had a recession on September 11th, and 2002, we started to see inklings of a potential recovery. 2003, same thing. 2004, all of a sudden, money became very available and real estate shot through the roof. And from 04 to 08, it was like nothing we had ever seen in terms of real estate increased value, all right, and available capital from banks. And then in 08, it went boom, right? The bottom fell out in 2011. 2012, we started to see some recovery. 2013, we started to see some recovery. 2014, expansion. 2015, a little bit more. 17, 18, 19, it's like nothing we'd ever seen before. And boom, we're back in the middle of a recession again. So is it possible that capital remains cheap and we as investors are able to utilize our balance sheets and our experience to benefit our portfolios? It's very possible.
Right. So the thing that I like about real estate is that it is an inefficient market. It's like,
Mhm.
here's a property that's for sale for $100,000. The question is, what's it worth? Well, it could be worth $200,000. It could be worth $50,000. What the person's selling it for has nothing to do with
No.
the value.
No, it has
And
to do. Yes, it has to do. Sometimes it has to do with their emotional opinions. Sometimes it has to do with something else.
right,
For you, the buyer, for me, the buyer, it has to do with either what value I can build into that project that I can utilize to that I can leverage, what value I can build into that project to leverage into capital to create a better cash flow than the building actually provides, or what cash flow the building has already.
right. So we're aiming to take cash and buy cash flow. So we're changing it from one vehicle to another vehicle.
It
From
depends on what your goals are as an investor, right? So, if you're a mentee and you're sitting in front of me, I'm going to ask you point blank what your goals are. If your goals are cash flow, well, then yes, you're not going to want to overpay for that property. You're going to want to find out what the max the lowest you can buy it and the max you can rent it for, right? For us right now as a company, we are not only trying to create cash flow, but we're also trying to create deals that have this amazing value add so that we can actually construct that property. That to us is a double win. Constructing that property and increasing that value increases our balance sheet. It gives us the opportunity to make some fees during the construction process and then the cash flow on the back end. So we have a multi-pronged goal going into our projects right now. That might change. 6 months from now, we might only be caring about cash flow and only looking at properties that are already finished.
Right. So you're going to do less and less, potentially do less and less of the construction part because
So we're going to see.
what's that?
We're going to see, because remember, while this is all happening, you've got other local legislation that's going to kick in, right? You have no idea how this downturn is going to impact the tax abatement. You have no idea how, what city council turns around and changes their mind on what they've already done with the tax abatement. You have no idea where all of this falls in to play. We had huge swaths of West Philly that were just rezoned less than a couple of months ago. And so, you could have bought a property and it was RM1, not have pulled your zoning permit for a triplex, and now it's RSA 5. Right? So, that changes the dynamics of real estate, not just the broad economic picture. And so a lot of that's going to play into what we do 6 months from now. But for the time being, the projects that we have in our pipeline, we're going to construct them coming out of the ground.
Right. What were some of the things that allowed you to get into the position that you're in now? Why I ask is because there are a lot of people who want to become real estate investors. I put a post out there recently. Who wants to learn about real estate investing while you're quarantined at home? And a whole bunch of people responded, and they want to be a part of it. Sure. So how did you get to where you are? And then so the people who want to become investors, they can have a path, like be able to see something. It's obviously not going to be exactly your path, right? It can't be.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it's something that it's like a clear pathway that they can look at as a study.
So I'm gonna say something that's relatively broad, and that is perseverance and tenacity. Because if you don't have that in this business, you shouldn't get into it. It's just that simple. There's too many curveballs, too many things that you don't see coming. I mean, the last time I saw you, you were dealing with a door that got kicked in at one of your properties, right? I mean, it is everything from that nuance to the nuance of, do I take deferment or forbearance? And what's the difference? And if I call my attorney and ask that person, most likely they're going to charge me, right? And so I'm going to have that additional call. Like there are these little nuances that if you don't like the game, if you don't like those little nuances and the headaches, you probably shouldn't do this. Instead, you should take your money, find somebody you really like, and invest with them if they like the nuances. But in terms of how I got here, how we got here, I have for the last probably 2.5, 3 years been talking about what is happening right now. I have anticipated a falling out. So my first real investment property came in 2009. So right after the crash. I knew nothing. I mean, obviously everyone knew about Lehman Brothers, but I had no idea why it happened. I didn't understand ramifications on real estate. I didn't understand what was coming down the pike. So I overpaid for a property, and when everything finally fizzled out, the property was worth 65% of what I actually paid for it. So we were upside down. We had a mortgage for $109,000, but the property was worth 67 grand. It was bad. Because I came up in that, and I've watched some of my colleagues and my peers who have guided me, my mentors, who have been through downturns before, which we all know it'll happen again. I was preparing my company for this. And so we looked at what the bank required of us, and we went more conservative. So if a bank said to us, you need to have a 1.25 debt service coverage ratio, then our building had to pull a 1.35. And if that building crossed the 1.35 mark and there was no way for us to cut the fat or increase the rents, that building got sold. And in the last 3 years, I think we've sold 9 or 10 properties, because we started to look at how can we get into bigger projects that are better positioned, and how can we get out of projects that could potentially be problematic if the bottom were to fall out for us. And so the position that we're in now was very intentional. And part of the reason that it became so intentional was I read an amazing book called The Secret Life of Banking and Real Estate by an Australian economist called Phil Anderson. Very tough book to come by. You usually have to buy it used online. Secret Life, Real Estate and Banking.
The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking
by Philip J. Anderson. And this book, I was looking for this book for a very, very long time. It talks about the last 200 years of real estate cycles, because real estate cycles have happened before, over and over and over and over again. I have a friend of mine right now who this will be his 4th recession.
Wow.
Right? In the business since the 70s, this will be his 4th recession, either a large recession like 08 or a mid-cycle recession like 2000. He has experienced all of that, and his company is still kicking. So he was someone who I sought out because I wanted to know, how does my company survive the downturn? It's easy to survive the upturn. How do you survive the downturn? And so we've been positioning ourselves in this, looking at cash flow, looking at our debt service coverage ratios, looking at the timing of when our debt is due. Right? That is like a huge, for some reason, that is something that forever has bothered me. I don't mind having debt, but when that debt due, it always was something that concerned me. And so in our portfolio, we don't have a mortgage due for any of our properties. I think the next loan is due 6 years from now.
Okay.
So we are very positioned for a long play instead of short bursts.
Okay. So that was cash flow, debt service coverage ratios, and debt due dates are super important to you. And are the debt service coverage ratios at a 1.35 still the line for you and the properties that you have?
Most of them, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I've got a couple that are right on the 1.3 mark, but most
Yeah.
banks you talk to want to see a 1.2 debt service coverage ratio. And to me, it's not enough play. That if something were to go wrong, you don't have the flexibility to move. So a great example would be, we've got a triplex. That doesn't matter what the numbers were, but we had a triplex where the rents were really well positioned in this market in West Philly. They were really low. We had bought the building for $72,000. We rehabbed it for $75,000. We refinanced it. The appraised value was $320,000. I mean, it was on paper a small project, but a money maker, right? Didn't have a lot of debt on it. I knew if we sold it, we'd have a massive capital gain hit on the project because we didn't spend a lot of money to build it, and it was worth a lot of money. And we kept the rents low on purpose so that we could constantly keep the same tenants in the building over and over again. We didn't have a lot of turnover. Right. And the real estate taxes on the building were like $867, which is great. On a triplex in West Philly, fantastic. Then in 2015, AVI came out, and 2016, the building didn't get reassessed. 2017, it got reassessed, and the real estate taxes jumped to $1,100. No big deal. Well, in 2019, the real estate taxes jumped to $3,108.
Whoa.
Well, we knew it was coming. So the leases we had in place, we ended, which we had to. We didn't have a choice. And we had increased the rents to the max rent of the marketplace. So I think like the first floor was $950 and is now $1,200. And it's a great, large 900 square foot, one bedroom with a private rear yard and granite and air conditioning. It's laundry. It's really, really nice unit. It's top of the market in cost, which bothers me. Yeah. What bothers me even more is that we started to project out that if the real estate taxes go up 4% every year, I'm going to be at my debt service coverage ratio in 3 years. That building is too close for my comfort.
Wow, there you go.
So, it went on the market 2 weeks before COVID-19 hit.
Wow.
Lucky us.
Yeah.
Yeah, lucky us. But I mean, that is a building where on paper it makes money. And if your investment strategy is different than ours, that's a building you'll buy. For us, it's a little too close for comfort because it doesn't give us big picture, long-term flexibility. And so,
Right. And for a lot of people who are interested in getting into the business, a lot of times they think that all of the properties are overpriced or there are no deals out there. So one of the things, as you just mentioned, is that there are people who are looking to get out for a reason that may not be your reason. Their reason of getting out is your reason for getting in. So again, inefficiencies in real estate is just different opinions. Sometimes it's a perfect union.
Yeah, and listen, we looked at the marketplace and saw what was on market. And instead of marketing the building at the price points of the other triplexes within 3 blocks, we undercut the other triplexes by $19,900.
Wow.
We were like, okay, if you all are going to price at here, we're going to price here because we want this thing to move.
Right.
We want it to move. And because we don't owe a lot of money, we have the ability to have that kind of flexibility. And I'm willing to take a $20,000 hit, which sounds ridiculous. I'm willing to take a $20,000 hit to get myself out of what I think is an unflexible position and 1031 it into a larger building with more cash flow that is in a more long-term tenable situation for us. And so that's our strategy. That's our investment strategy. Somebody else could have a 401k and their response is, I no longer want that 401k to be in the stock market. So I'm going to drop it into this triplex. And if it makes 5% profit, I'm happy. And my 401k is safer in these bricks than it would be in the stock market. Right? Completely different strategy.
Right.
But my need to sell might be their reason, that might be the perfect timing for their reason to buy something. So I'm going to always.
I'm going to unwrap all that you just said. There's a lot of gems in there. I think a lot of people would have missed if they don't speak real estate.
Sure. Yeah.
rattling things off, and it's like I'm catching it, and then I'm wondering if the audience is catching it.
Sure, be my guest.
All right, so
we need to have like a little live comments so they can ask questions.
Well, they can.
Like, Ryan, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they can all ask questions. So if you guys are watching, and we'll answer them. But so one of the things that you said is that your property was already reaching or had reached the height of the rent market. Like that's how much
what we felt is the height of the rent. What we were comfortable renting our unit for. That doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else couldn't get $1,300 for that unit. We as a company did not feel comfortable marketing those units any more money than what they were. That doesn't mean somebody, listen, we've got an apartment building that is a block away from my office where the studio apartments start at $1,295.
Right.
Next to my office is an apartment building that we own, so also a block away, and those studios start at $795.
Right. Okay.
To each their own. Everybody has a different strategy. I'm not counting their chickens. Hopefully they're not counting mine. And at the end of the day, we're comfortable with what we're doing. But that doesn't necessarily mean we've got the best strategy. It just means it's a strategy that we're comfortable with.
Got it. Okay. So your company has a personal philosophy of what the rents should be in the market and where you feel safe. You don't want to be too high. You're not going to be too low. You're going to be somewhere in the middle.
Sure.
So it to your audience, and it keeps your company cash flowing. Your debt service coverage ratio, DSCR, for those who don't know, that is your net operating income, meaning I'll do it in numbers.
No, do it.
$2,000 comes in rent. That's the gross. Now, as a landlord, in case you guys don't know, landlords have expenses. They include taxes, insurance, utilities, vacancy management, and maintenance, right? We have to pay for all of those things.
Yep.
So let's say 2,000 comes in, and let's say 650 goes out. So what's left over for the landlord is 1,350. That's called your net operating income, your NOI. Now, you're going to go out and you're going to get a mortgage on the property. And now you owe the bank principal and interest payments. So in Ryan's case, if he owes $1,000 a month in interest, you take your $1,350 and you divide it by the 1,000. That equals a debt service coverage ratio of 1.35.
Correct.
Now, his expenses in terms of the taxes were projected to go up. They increased, and it got to the point where it was like $3,100, and he was forecasting a 4% growth of taxes. He saw that in 3 years, with even the rent increases at whatever he projected, and the tax increases at whatever he's projecting, he's showing that in 3 years, this property no longer fits in his personal model. Now, it could fit in somebody else's model.
Correct.
Somebody else could look at that building with the NOI that the building's producing, and based on their cash position and what loan they might get, it might work perfectly for them. And another thing that Ryan was saying is that somebody might afford 401k, might want to do a self-directed IRA and purchase the property, and so that they took their retirement account money out of the stock market and put it into real estate. So Ryan said all of that stuff. I don't know if you guys caught that. That's what he's saying, right? So he had the building was potentially not going to perform the way his company needs it to perform. And then some other buyer might be interested in buying it using retirement account money so that it is no longer affected by the stock market. It is all about the cash flow from the tenants. So Ryan was the seller, and then there could be a buyer in those unique situations, put them together. And then what Ryan was also saying, because we got a question, right? What is a 1031 exchange?
Hey,
right? So when Ryan sells the building, he's going to have what's called a capital event where he's going to have to pay taxes on the profit, right? So instead of paying the taxes now, he can use that money, roll it into another building, buying something larger, and not have to pay the taxes until he sells that one, or he can 1031 that one again. So he's deferring the taxes using what's called 1031.
Yeah. The 1031 exchange allows you to defer your capital gains on the federal side. It does not allow you to defer your capital gains on the state side, and it does not allow you to defer your net profit gains to your city tax. So you're still going to have a net profit tax receipt. You're still going to have a 3.07% Pennsylvania capital gains tax for us in Philadelphia. But you can defer your federal capital gains hit and roll it into the next building, and so on and so forth. So if you want to, at some point, you could turn around and not do that and end up paying the capital gains at the sale of the next building. For us, this triplex is about cash flow, right? It's about longevity and it's about cash flow. So we're going to want to 1031 it into a building that cash flows better than the triplex and gives us a longer window, a longer picture.
Right. So what's neat about doing a 1031 is when you're selling, you have profit that you have to roll over. You have to roll over the whole sale amount, not just the profit, but the whole sale amount into the purchase of something larger than your sale amount.
Correct.
So your profit allows you to take less debt on the next property, right? That profit is
in theory, yes.
In theory,
yeah.
Well, that's where the analysis comes in.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
In theory, so if you have a higher equity position, then you could have a better cash flow position and debt service coverage ratio. My friend Chris here, he says, I like a debt service coverage ratio of 3.
Damn, where are you finding debt service coverage ratios of 3?
He's out in Arizona, so he might have.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we all find that in Philadelphia. That would be amazing.
Yeah. I may have to move out there, Chris. So let's see. So Corey has a question. What's your strategy for finding the other 1031 property within the allotted time frame?
Sure.
So yeah. So I'll explain the time frame, and then you explain your strategy.
Sure.
So the time frame is you have 45 days to give a list of property that you might buy, and then you have 180 days from the time of sale to actually buy the next property. So that means you got to get your financing in place, and you have to get into an agreement and actually close within 180 days. But you do also have to make sure you identify within 45 days. So you have these constraints. And so let's hear from Ryan about
you can move the properties you choose. You can move them around within those allotted time frames. So you could choose a property and then choose not to do that property because you had sort of you found something on inspections and you choose a secondary property. For us, so the last 1031 exchange that we did, it took us I think 12 properties till we got to the one that we ended up buying. And it wasn't perfect in any way, shape, or form. But it was a B- rehab by someone else. They had 7 years left on the 10-year tax abatement. They needed to get out because of other investments, right? So they had an issue. They had a wall that they'd hit. They needed to sell this asset in order to make it over that wall, right? So their strategy, whatever their investment strategy was, created an opportunity for us to buy. We 1031'd a triplex into an 8-unit apartment building. That 8-unit apartment building, we then 4 out of the 8 leases were ending. When those leases ended, we rehabilitated cosmetically those 4 units and increased the cash flow of the building by almost 35%. But what makes that building even more strategically interesting for us is it's sitting on 15,000 square feet of land. And so although it's not zoned for an apartment building large enough to sit on that land, who knows what happens in the future? Right?
You're going to build a bunch of tiny homes on trailers and park them on there.
We might get cheeky. We'll see. I don't know. It should be an interesting project when it's all said and done.
Right.
That is the future of that project. Right now, the building's on like a 1.5 debt service coverage ratio, and is in a really, really strong cash flow position. And the triplex, I think, was bringing in around 54,000 in gross revenues. This 8-unit apartment building brings in around 93. So right out of the gate, we did really, really well with that building.
Wow.
Yes, we did really, really well.
Right. The other thing that people know about the 1031 is you don't necessarily have to buy one building that's more money. You can actually buy multiple smaller ones as long as the total adds up more than your sale price.
And you do it within the allotted time frame. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can get real creative with it if you really want to. You can do something. If you get really, really creative, and we haven't done this yet. I think it's a little beyond our strategy at the moment, but you can even do something called a reverse 1031, which allows you to use your money to actually rehabilitate a property. Those get a little complicated, but there are mechanisms out there for you to get very creative in your tax planning around your real estate.
Corey has a question. Can you be proactive, or is your due diligence period restricted to the 45-80 time frame?
No, we can. I mean, we started when we knew that we were going to sell this triplex that went into this 8-unit apartment building. We started looking at buildings before the triplex went under agreement. We started kicking tires. Yeah, we were very proactive so that we could utilize that 45 to 180 day period in order to complete a real due diligence. So we weren't under the gun when the 45 day time frame came into play.
Right. You could probably even look at a whole bunch of properties that you potentially want to buy before selling your building. Yeah. And then by the time you find the buyer of your building, you also lined up the seller of the next building, and you can almost close them back to back in 1031.
It's actually kind of what we did. That's exactly what we did. We lined up the building. It didn't really have any other offers. We got our triplex under agreement. We got through our due diligence on the triplex. The minute they got their mortgage commitment, we put the other property under agreement.
Right.
So we bought ourselves some time in our due diligence in order to complete some more work.
Right.
Which was great, because what ended up happening in our due diligence was we ended up finding stuff on the 1031 8-unit apartment building and negotiated down the price.
Wow.
So, which helped us make some of the renovations that we wanted to make.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. So, I want to discuss real quick about what people could do right now. So some people have like, oh, I got a great idea for a business. It's like, okay, great. Go do something about it, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody has these great ideas. One of the things that I wanted to discuss was this idea of this MVP, minimum viable product, where they can launch something, right? And also with that comes like studying and preparing and networking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What could people who have this idea of becoming a real estate investor, what should they do right now while they have the time to do so?
So I don't think the strategy changes very much between the situation that we're under right now and if you were coming to me at the height of the real estate market. I think the thing that you need to look at first is what your goals are. I think the second thing that you need to understand is what kind of real estate accomplishes that goal, right? So if your goal is, I want to make $35,000 this year, you're most likely not doing that through a rental property. You're most likely doing that through some kind of flip or rehabilitate and sell, or you're buying really, really cheap and you're able to refinance it. But even in this marketplace, that's going to be very, very difficult. Nevertheless, the first thing you're looking at is what your goals are financially, what you would like to accomplish. Your next would be to figure out what type of real estate accomplishes that goal. The third would be to figure out what neighborhood you actually want to be in and see if the real estate that accomplishes your financial goals is in the neighborhood you want to be in. If it's not, you need to choose another neighborhood. And if you're not a realtor and you can't get access to comparable sales over the last 3 months, 6 months, 12 months to see what that marketplace is once you find a neighborhood and you connect the type of real estate you want with the type of neighborhood that you're in, that's your next piece. You should be calling real estate agents, doing phone chats like this, and getting them on your team so that you have the ability to figure out what the after repair values are incomparable to the distressed properties in that neighborhood, to see exactly what the gap is and if that gap is enough for you to rehab that property. And then your last piece is access to capital, whether it's your own capital, partner's capital, or bank capital. Banks are still open. Call them.
Gotcha. So, all right, I like that. The thing that I want to point out in this unique moment that we're in, because this is a unique moment, so we have to, and if we recognize it, we can then take steps to capitalize on it a little bit. So right now that there are going to be sellers that just want out because the uncertainty is unnerving to them. So they just, here you go. I'd rather you have the asset, I have the cash, and we're all good, right?
Yeah, and I don't think that happens right now. But if this goes into May, like it looks like it will, I think that you'll see a couple of those type of opportunities present themselves.
Right. So be mindful of that. Be on the lookout for things like that, right?
Yeah, be proactive.
Yeah. Also with ARVs, they're interesting. If we have another month where people aren't getting paid and things aren't selling and income not coming in, then there's a good possibility ARVs could be lower and then even lower in the foreseeable future. So whatever your ARV is, take it at 80% of that number, 85%, something like hedge it a little bit, cut it, give it a haircut.
I would definitely hedge your bets.
Yeah. So give that a haircut. The other thing in terms of financing, so some lenders are a little bit on the, like, we're just going to wait and see for now. And if you're a brand new investor, it may be a little harder for you to get financing.
Yeah.
Because you have no track record and you may not have capital. So the other thing is you could leverage the seller's financing or leverage seller financing. Either you can do a subject to, or you can do financing where they get a cash flow stream and you pay them. The only thing that I recommend is to make sure that you have a higher equity position. And now that might require you bringing in an equity partner if you don't have the money. But the thing that allows investors and business owners to survive a downturn is having access to capital. It's just being able to pay your bills. Right? Those who are able to pay your bills every single month, when things start to get good again, I mean, you're still in the game. So have somebody who has the money, you're bringing the skills, they bring the money, and then you guys do deals together, right? So if you have access to capital, if you have an equity partner, or if you are somebody who has the equity, just now you have to learn about how to price the properties correctly, make sure your ARVs are a little lower just to be on the safe side, and also how to negotiate with the seller. Learn how to listen to what their pain point is or what their fear is. And if they think that the world is just going to end, then provide them a solution that allows them to live through the end of the world. And then they'll work it out however they need to work it out, right? So those are a couple of things that people should focus on, the creative acquisition strategies right now.
I have no disagreement with that.
Awesome. There was something else. So I want to hear your point of view on this. I was thinking that in this time of quarantine, we get to be home and we have all of this time to do a whole bunch of things. But it also affords us to do nothing, right? And that's the hard part about being an entrepreneur. Yeah. You get to do anything you want, including nothing. Well, for everybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, here's your chance. You get to do something or do nothing. The best way that I found to do something is to set a goal and then also to have an accountability partner or an accountability group. Have somebody count on you to perform, or have a goal that has a deadline that you need to perform, so that you don't find yourself just watching Netflix all day long, right? So I wanted to hear from you how maybe you have leveraged different tools like that to accomplish really big goals that you think maybe you could have accomplished yourself. How do you find the motivation to do what it is that you know to do?
Sure. So so the first thing is, if you know me well, you know that I don't sit idle well, and so because of that, it's really hard to tie me down in one place, and so the COVID-19 stay-at-home order doesn't really bode well for me. And so what I have done is try to stick to my normal routine. I have a list of goals that I have for the month. Once a week, I break those goals into my weekly goals of what I'm going to accomplish. Those goals then get broken into what's going to be accomplished during the day. And as far as my schedule goes, I try and do one big thing on my list at least once a day. Take one meeting, do one big thing. And so the downside to this stay-at-home order and the craziness that we're all in right now is those goals have changed, right? Instead of trying to complete the next real estate transaction, I'm filling out applications for SBA loan assistance, right? And so that part annoys me, that I'm not working on my nuances and the things I really want to drive the company forward. Instead, I'm working on potential strategies to make sure that we stay alive. But the overall goal that I've had since the shutdown has been to try and stick to my normal routine. And so I'm in the gym 3 to 4 days a week. I'm working out at home 3-4 days a week, right? Ran the Schuylkill Trail for the first time 3 weeks ago, right? So like even though that was something that I never desired to do, working out was still something I wanted to do, and playing basketball wasn't an option, right? So because of the order, so I ran the trail. The reality is that the more you can try and stick to your routine, the better off you are. This morning, my wife and I, we got up at our normal time. Our kid got up. She was getting up around her normal time, right? She still had breakfast. She still got dressed. She still brushed her teeth. She doesn't get TV in the morning. She didn't get TV today. We're not on vacation. This is not a vacation. This is a pain in the ass. And so, deal with it.
Yeah, it is. It is not vacation. A lot of people are looking at it like vacation, but
yeah, it's not a vacation.
I don't. This is a vacation. This in a weird way is a gift, right? It's the worst of times. It's the best of times.
Yeah.
It could be the best of times for you to build your business right now. It could be the worst of time economically and everything else, but it's the best of times for those who want to do something. Now, what I heard was your schedule changed and all that, but you still did things. You're an entrepreneur before. You were already in charge of creating your day. And so you've created your day from being an entrepreneur. There are a lot of 9-to-5 people who their day was always dictated for them. They weren't in control. They were used to being told what to do. Yeah. How do they create a schedule for them? They've never had to do it before. Their boss told them what time to come in, what time to eat food, what time to go to the bathroom, and then what time to leave, right? So now they're like, I watch TV all day. So what do they do now? What's their first steps?
So I would actually set it up. I mean, my day has been set up, like today was set up in specific time increments of the goals that I wanted to accomplish. So I wanted to get this SBA loan out. So that was goal number 1. So I set myself up an hour and a half to get that loan application out the door. I got it done a little sooner, so that let me answer a couple of emails. I had another hour where my business partner and I went over. We had a project that wrapped We just closed a refinance loan on Friday, and my partner and I wanted to go over the project's overall budget and see what our, throw out a term, our yield to cost was going to be, which is what the total cost of the project was versus the net operating income that we're bringing in from the project. We wanted to see what our percentage ended up being versus our pro forma from 2 years ago when we first started the project. We had an hour to put that together. So look, I set myself up with specific times of the things I wanted to accomplish, just like I would if I was in an office and had a meeting from 9 to 10 with a coffee break and then a phone conference from 10:15 to 11. And I set myself up. And I took my goals from my worksheet and plugged them into the things that I wanted to accomplish. I had an offer from a potential equity investor that they made to us from a couple of weeks back that under the circumstances never got responded to. That was one of the goals, to get out, to respond to that equity offer. It got responded to today. So far so good. We're accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. I have like 2 more hours before I have to shut down, but so far so good. Today was a win. There are certain days when my 4-year-old is being a 4-year-old, and those days aren't as successful.
Right. There are days she wins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So what I heard was that you have goals. You have goals and you have tasks, right? You have these bigger vision goals, and then you have smaller tasks to accomplish. And some of these tasks are real big, and then some of these are like to-do lists kind of things.
Yeah, and to your point of accountability, I'm accountable to myself. I don't have a boss, right? If I fail to accomplish the goals of the company, then the company fails. I no longer have salaries for my employees. I no longer have a distribution check for me at the end of the month. My business partner doesn't have a distribution check at the end of the month. My bills aren't getting paid. The lights in my office aren't staying on. I mean, I am accountable to I'm accountable to the world that I've built, but that started with me being accountable to myself when I was sitting at my kitchen table initially. And now I'm back at my kitchen table.
Got it. Right. There's like the pain of taking action, and then there's the pain of not.
Yeah.
And the pain of not, in your brain, you have associated with massive pain because you let down all of these families, you let down your own family, you let down yourself, your company takes a hit, all because you didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
So
listen, I have no desire to fill out loan applications with the Small Business Administration. I have zero desire to fill out applications with PIDC for potential grants to cover my payroll for my staff while they are furloughed at the moment. I have no desire. But if I don't do that, who's going to do it?
That's a very good point, because I've said it a lot of times where you don't feel like it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you never feel like it, but it needs to get done anyway.
It does. It happens. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'd rather like my wife and daughter are on a nature walk right now. I would rather be doing that right now.
Right, rather than sitting with me talking.
No, it wasn't even about that. I was going to be in the office because I have to fill out loan applications and grant applications so that I could potentially be a better employer, take my staff off of unemployment and bring them back to work in some capacity, shape, or form, right? I could get some, I was at one of the emails I responded to was to TrueMark Financial Credit Union about their deferment plan for one of our loans, right? At the end of the day, if that waited till tomorrow, maybe the world wouldn't come to an end, but I moved it an inch forward today. And so no nature hike for me.
Right.
Then we're going to work because this isn't a vacation.
What's interesting, it's raining right now. Like literally, I'm here in the rain right now. So that nature hike probably would have sucked.
Hey, to each their own.
Yeah. No, you bring up a good point. Just moving it an inch, right?
Yeah.
And if you move it an inch every day, every 5 minutes, every hour, you look back, it moved a mile. So,
I have been working on this same real estate deal for 18 months. Today, one of the other things that got accomplished was my discussion with my attorneys responding to the operating agreement with the partnership that we are, this is our final, we're in the final round of negotiations of the operating agreement. 18 months it took us to get to this point. And we were probably 3 to 4 months away without the shutdown. With the shutdown, we're probably looking at another 6 months. This deal will take me 2 years to accomplish. And so, right, how do you stay motivated in a deal that isn't paying you, that isn't doing anything to benefit your family, your employees, your team, your portfolio, nothing? How do you stay engaged in that? And the only way is accountability to the goals you set forth for your company, your organization, your personal life. And so it's one of the things that we did. And one of the books that I just finished, which I absolutely loved, which kind of reset my mind on all of this, was called The Big Leap. I don't remember who the author was. It's called The Big Leap.
Oh, The Big Leap.
Yeah. It's got a little fish jumping from a small bowl to a bigger bowl on front of it. Yeah. Okay. It's a fantastic book about engaging the better of yourself. It was a quick read for me, but I read it because I felt like I was getting misaligned. Right. So even though I sound like, I've got my act together and I'm chop and getting stuff done, even I needed that reset. And so, if somebody has never done this before, this is a really, really good opportunity to do so. First, file unemployment, then make yourself a list of goals that you want to accomplish. And if you don't know where to start, call home.
Yeah, call me. Thanks, Ryan.
That's simple.
Sometimes people ask, like, how do you feel like doing this every single day? How do you stay motivated? The answer is you don't. Like, some days you just don't feel like doing anything.
No, but
right?
I love this game. I have a love-hate relationship with the game of real estate.
Yeah.
It's incredible. My wife asks me all the time, why do you love this? Why? Because when you accomplish a project, when you put a building in the ground, when you rehab an apartment, when you buy that triplex, when you 1031 the triplex into an 8-unit apartment building, it's awesome. It's just awesome. But at the end of the day, if you are not comfortable with the nuances, it'll be a tough road. And one of the ways to deal with the nuances is setting up big picture goals and then knock them down inch by inch.
We got someone.
Emily?
Yeah, Emily says thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Put as much of this into action. So she's one of the students in my real estate group, and so she's been trying to make it all work. So
it's awesome stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you being vulnerable with the fact that it's hard, and sometimes you're scatterbrained, and sometimes you don't feel like doing it, and sometimes you run into problems, and you too have to file for loans, and you have to file for all kinds of things, and you do all kinds of things that you don't want to do, yet you do them.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people,
absolutely. The project that is coming out of the ground right now, just to give you an example, if you give me a second, I will find, clicking off of you for 1 second, I'm going to find this email. Let's see. Here we go. So just to give you an idea, this one project that we are building, the email that we sent the bank to ask for our forbearance period on our construction loan, on our interest-only construction loan, it started out like this. Dear Joanna, a 9-square-foot triangular piece of our land stuck in a historic deed from June of 1898 and a 300-square-foot piece of our property usurped by a neighbor couldn't stop us. A water main break, a 1,000-gallon hidden oil tank, a major accident to the primary sponsor, which would be me. I crashed my bike and shattered my shoulder and my left wrist. None of those major issues could stop us. Groundwater, Pico's change order for a vault room in our building, which required 4 months worth of L&I permitting changes. L&I reversing a decision on approved work. They approved our work. Then they came back and said they didn't approve our work. Then they approved our work again. All of these things couldn't stop us. It took a worldwide pandemic to stop this building. This project is 10 months behind schedule. It took 3 years just to put it in the ground. If you are not persistent in your goals of accomplishing something in real estate, if you are not willing to stick to it for your betterment and the betterment of your company and your team, then you need to get a better team, because that's the only way to be successful in this. That project's been nothing but a pain in the ass, and it's going to be fantastic when it is done. I hope to God I don't have to do it again. But if I do, then we'll roll with the punches. And we'll get back up.
Right. So people will look at you and the portfolio that you built and just be like, man, he's got the life. Oh, he walked right into that.
Oh, yeah. Right. Face first, I walked right into that.
Right. And they don't realize that 3 years into a project, and that project has not made you not $1. It costs you many dollars.
That project has made us, in the 4 years it's been in operation, it has made us.
Right. Okay.
We just finished the foundation, and then the governor shut us down.
Right.
It has made us $20,000, which we put back into our equity in the project. So it made us 20 grand, but we put it into equity in the project. So we haven't actually made anything that has kept our lights on.
Right. Nothing spendable.
No. It didn't buy us anything. Didn't pay for any employee salary. No, not yet.
Right.
Soon, right. I hope, but not yet. Yeah.
I think real estate investors, one of the key traits that they have to have is this optimism that I hope that it will make money one of these days.
Oh, this one will. It just will be painful to get there. Absolutely. And if you do your research well, your project will always make you money in some way, shape, or form, whether it's from cash flow or resale or refinance down the road.
Right.
If you do your research well going into the project, there are more than one ways to make money.
That there is the biggest asterisk that we have to identify. It's that just because you buy real estate, it doesn't make you a good investor. It just makes you a buyer of real estate.
Yeah.
It's understanding the fundamentals of how to make money from the cash flow, how to make money from the equity position, how to make money from the refi, how to make money from all of those different things, and analyzing it correctly so that at the end, it actually does those things. Because you think it's a good deal.
And then once you understand all of that, it's then understanding the tax piece to real estate and how it can be beneficial for you, and when to sell a building, when to not sell a building, when to 1031 it, and how that impacts you individually is the last piece to that puzzle. But to get there, you need to learn all of the stuff Home just said.
There's a lot. There is a lot. And so,
absolutely.
But I think it's a worthwhile journey, because if you can understand all of those tax pieces, if you can understand all of the analysis, when to sell, when to 1031 exchange, what impact it makes, like when you understand all of that, it just applies all over the place. Like you understand this business, you understand most other businesses. So it makes you a very good person.
And you and I have had this conversation. Real estate has given me opportunities that I would never in a million years have even anticipated. I've consulted on movies. I've consulted with nonprofits for trying to save historic properties that I didn't own. I've been able to start a nonprofit program with the University City District related to real estate work, which has parlayed into me helping small businesses move into my community in buildings I don't own. Those opportunities would never have happened without real estate. And so all of that, all of what real estate has taught me hasn't just benefited me financially or my family or my employees or my partners. It's benefited the community, and the community has benefited me as a human. And then I've been able to do all this other great, interesting stuff. Real estate has been an amazing opportunity. So yeah, I might talk about the pitfalls and the challenges and joke around about how hard a project's been, but I love it for all of those reasons and more. So
It's because of who it makes you.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's the perfect ending, because you've definitely shared with us your evolution through this process, and it's been a great one. And because you've had all of these ups and downs and all of these stories and all of these learning lessons, you make for a very good interview.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for being so generous with your time. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, how could they reach?
So best way is probably email. It's Ryan Spak at spakgroup.com. Or you can follow me on Instagram. It's at Ryan Spak. Or you can follow Spak Group if you want. You can just Google Spak Group or go to our website, www.spakgroup.com. And at the bottom is all our Instagram, Twitter feed pages. So hit us up. We are happy to answer any questions. The best way for someone to learn is to ask. It's how we got this far. So ask away.
Yeah. Again, thank you for being generous with everything, and good luck with filing all of those loans and things.
No, my pleasure. Listen, my next phone call is in 2 minutes, and it is with Dan Dean from Real Capital Partners, and we're gonna see if we can get financing for a project that is in our pipeline. So onward and upward.
All right. Well, good luck with that. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.